Water changes are the problem we've all been ignoring for too long. Today, I'll show you why they are not safe, if they are even actually needed, and how to do it instead. So without further ado, let's get right to it. A 50% water change once a week is a very common advice in this hobby. It's supposed to reset your tank and get rid of any excess, like nitrates, which can harm your fish if they get too high. But I will explain why they are not such a good idea and what you can do instead. When you buy aquarium fish, they come in a bag with aquarium water, the water from the aquarium they were living in. Now, let me ask you this. When you acclimate that fish, do you take out 50% of the water in their bag and replace it with 50% of your aquarium water all at once? Of course not. And if you do, please stop. Don't do that. We acclimate them slowly by adding small amounts of aquarium water throughout a long period of time. I usually do an hour. I feel like that's enough time for them to get used to the new water. I might do a little less with hardier fish, but for most sensitive species, an hour is usually enough. So if we are going to all this trouble to acclimate our fish, it's obviously because they are important to us. Why are we then doing 50% water changes once a week all at once? It doesn't make any sense. It's obviously not good for them, and yet we still do it. If you've been losing fish over the years, that could very well be the reason. So in the next part of this video, let's see if they are really that important and how to solve this water change issue once and for all. A common misconception is that in the wild, lakes, rivers, and ponds don't get water changes, so aquariums shouldn't need them either. But that is ignoring a lot of important facts, because nature is constantly performing massive, continuous water changes. A wild river or creek is receiving fresh, pure water from rain, melting snow, and underground springs. The old water carrying fish waste, dissolved organic matter, and excess minerals is physically flushed downstream into oceans or evaporated out. Another thing to consider is water volume, because in a lake, the ratio of water volume to fish biomass is astronomical. One fish might have millions of gallons of water to himself, so the concentration of waste is efficiently diluted and never reaches toxic levels. When we compare an aquarium to that, a 30-gallon tank is a stagnant puddle by comparison. You are cramming a high density of fish into a tiny closed box. Every time you feed your fish or top off evaporated water with tap water, you are adding things to the tank that plants do not fully consume. Over time, these compounds build up to toxic levels, and without a physical water change, you are forcing fish to swim in their own accumulated concentrated waste. In theory, it is possible to create a perfectly balanced, self-sustaining system, and there is a lot of information out there about that. But that kind of aquarium can be very difficult to sustain long-term, and if any little thing changes, the whole system can crash. By that point, if you try to do an emergency water change, the parameters in your tank can be so different from the new water coming in that it will probably make it worse. So how do we make it safe? How can we do a safe water change that doesn't take a lot of work? That's exactly what I'll show you next. But before we get into that, if you're tired of cleaning your substrate while having to do a water change, this little vacuum lets you clean your aquarium without removing any water. I hated having to use hoses or gravel cleaners to clean my substrate because I would always run out of water before I was done, especially in my nano tanks. That's why I made this little vacuum. You can take as long as you like and your water level won't drop an inch. And for the month of June, we're doing a very special promotion. Go to the link in the description to check that out. In order to do a safe water change, the new water must closely match the tank water in 3 areas. The first one is temperature. This is the biggest danger during a large water change, because a sudden drop or spike of more than 3 to 4 degrees Fahrenheit can shock a fish immune system, making them susceptible to diseases like ick or causing immediate thermal shock. The new water should be within 1 degree of the tank water. Then there's pH. If your tank water has a pH of 7.2 and the new water is 7.4, a large water change won't be a problem and the fish won't even notice. The problem begins when there is a 1 point difference or above, using the same numbers as before. If your aquarium water is 7.2 and the new water is either 8.2 or 6.2, that is not good. This isn't because fish can handle that kind of change, but because it's happening within minutes. Something that might help understand this point a little better is CO2 injection. When you add CO2 to an aquarium, the pH can drop a whole point, but it happens gradually during the day and your fish can take it. When it happens all at once during a water change, not so much. Lastly, we have chlorine and chloramines. The new water must be treated with a high-quality dechlorinator before or during the refill to prevent chlorine from hurting the fish. Controlling these three factors is very difficult because you're trying to match two different water sources, and even though it can be done, it is a lot of work. You could do smaller water changes more times a week, since that way the shift is smaller and the livestock can handle it. But in reality, who wants to do even more water changes? Well, I found a solution, and I'll share that with you right now. But before that though, don't forget to like and subscribe, and hype up the video so it can get to more of you guys. I recently started experimenting with a drip water change system, but I had some issues with it. The main one was that since the city water pressure can change depending on the day, it was impossible for me to get an even drip rate throughout the week, and my RO system wasn't strong enough to add a pressure regulator. So I started using a solenoid valve together with some irrigation drippers, which are rated at 0.25 GPH and only allow 1 liter of water per hour. The solenoid valve is 12 volts with a 12-volt power adapter connected to a 110 outlet, and the valve is normally closed, so it doesn't allow any water through when the power is off. I have it on a timer so that it turns on and off 4 times during the day, for a total of 3.5 hours a day. This means only a little less than a gallon of water is changed throughout the whole day, which is about 7 gallons a week. This is for 20-gallon aquariums that have a lot of plants and hardscape inside, and I calculated that each one actually holds about 14 gallons of water. So a 7-gallon water change a week is 50%. Every aquarium has an overflow, which lets the old water out and into my backyard. You can adapt a system like this for any aquarium, no matter the size. And you don't need to drill a hole in your tank like I did for an overflow, since there are a lot of other ways to do that. The best part about this is that since it's only taking out 1 gallon of water a day, you can literally have a bucket sitting next to your aquarium with the overflow going into it, and just empty that bucket once a day. This way, my water changes are done very slowly and it's much safer for my fish. If you want me to show you step by step how to set up a system like this, let me know in the comments, and I might do a future video on it.